At 3:17 a.m. Tehran time, the sky exploded. And within minutes, the world changed. The United States and Israel launched a coordinated strike so precise, so devastating, that by sunrise, one of the most powerful men in the Middle East was gone. President Donald Trump declared it bluntly: Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is dead. And just like that, the Islamic Republic was thrown into chaos. But what happened next is even more shocking, because Iran didn't collapse. It hit back. This wasn't a limited strike. This wasn't symbolic. This was decapitation. American bombers and Israeli fighter jets launched from bases across the region and from a naval armada in the Arabian Sea. Missiles tore through Iranian airspace. Footage shows jets screaming low over Tehran in the dead of night. The target? Not just military infrastructure, not just missile silos. The Supreme Leader's compound. Satellite images now show it flattened, reduced to rubble in minutes. And then came Trump's message to the world. He called Khamenei one of the most evil people in history. He called his death justice for the people of Iran and all great Americans. And then he said something that may define this entire crisis. This is the single greatest chance for the Iranian people to take back their country. That wasn't just a statement. That was a challenge. Hours before the strike, Trump was seen at Mar-a-Lago, calm, relaxed, smiling. Then suddenly telling supporters he had to leave for more important business. Minutes later, he was with top military advisors. The green light was given. Operation Epic Fury had begun. And here's what makes this extraordinary. There was no congressional authorization, no national debate, no detailed mission outline shared publicly. This was a generational gamble, taken fast, taken hard, and taken without hesitation. But Tehran didn't stay silent. Even without its head of state, Iran responded within hours. Drone strikes ripped across the Gulf, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE. In Dubai, a luxury hotel was hit, flames lighting up the skyline of one of the world's richest cities. Air raid sirens wailed across Israel. Ballistic missiles were launched from northern Iran toward Israeli territory. Israel's missile shield lit up the night sky, intercepting wave after wave. But not all of them. At least one missile penetrated the defenses. And that changes everything. The Middle East is now balancing on a knife edge. Iran has struck American bases in the region. Missiles fired toward Kuwait and Bahrain. Drones targeting strategic sites. This is no longer a covert shadow war. This is open confrontation. And yet, inside Iran, something unexpected happened. As news spread of Khamenei's death, videos emerged from Tehran. People cheering, laughing, celebrating in the streets. For decades, Khamenei ruled with an iron grip. Protests were crushed. Thousands killed in crackdowns. Dissent silenced. His authority had already been weakening. Sanctions were biting. The economy was collapsing. Young Iranians were defiant. Now, suddenly the figure at the top is gone. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Killing a leader is one thing. Toppling a regime is another. Iran's security apparatus remains intact. The Revolutionary Guard, the intelligence services, the entrenched network of loyalists, they are still there. And they are armed. Trump's message wasn't just about the strike. It was about uprising. For many years, you asked for America's help, he said. Now you have a president willing to do what others would not. He told the Iranian people this was their moment, that America was backing them with overwhelming strength. But this is the enormous gamble. He is effectively asking unarmed civilians to finish what American missiles started. No US ground troops, no occupation force, just air power, and hope. Hope that the regime fractures. Hope that the streets rise up. Hope that history bends in his direction. That's a breathtaking risk. Meanwhile, Britain is watching carefully. Prime Minister Keir Starmer confirmed the UK was not involved in the strikes. But British forces are active in defensive operations. Planes are in the sky. Bases are on alert. The Foreign Office has warned against travel to Israel and Palestine. British nationals in Bahrain have been told to seek shelter immediately. London is calling for de-escalation. But events are moving faster than diplomacy. Israel says more than 500 targets were hit. Missile systems, command centres, high-ranking regime officials. Cockpit footage released by the Israeli military shows precision strikes on fleeing Iranian troops. The objective was clear: cripple the regime's ability to retaliate. But Iran is still firing, and that signals something crucial. Weakened? Yes. Destroyed? No. Let's step back. Ali Khamenei wasn't just Iran's political leader. He was the supreme leader for nearly 4 decades. Since 1989. Longer than most rulers in the modern Middle East. He outlasted presidents, wars, sanctions, revolutions. He embedded Iranian influence through proxies like Hezbollah and Hamas. He survived internal uprisings. He survived international isolation. Until now. And now, the vacuum he leaves behind could either implode the regime or radicalize it even further. Because succession plans were reportedly in place. He knew this day might come. The regime prepared. The question is whether preparation is enough when the sky falls in on your compound. This is the greatest geopolitical risk taken by an American president in a generation. There is no clear endgame yet. Trump has said the bombing will continue for as long as necessary. But what does necessary mean? Regime collapse, total disarmament, negotiation from strength, or something far more unpredictable? The world is now in uncharted territory. Oil markets are trembling. Global powers are calculating their next move. Russia is watching. China is watching. And across the Middle East, leaders are bracing for fallout. Because when you remove a pillar, you don't always control what falls next. In Tehran tonight, smoke still rises. In Israel, sirens still sound. In Washington, the gamble is in motion. This could be the beginning of the end for Iran's theocratic regime, or the beginning of a regional war that spirals far beyond anyone's expectations. One thing is certain: the world woke up to a different Middle East this morning. And what happens next may define the next decade of global politics. If you want the full breakdown of what this means, the risks no one is talking about, and the scenarios that could unfold in the coming days, stay right here. Because this story is only just beginning. The shockwave did not stop at the rubble of one compound. It raced across borders, across capitals, across a region already trembling. Within hours of the announcement, Tehran's retaliation began. Not in whispers, but in fire. Drones surged across the Gulf. Ballistic missiles ignited the night sky. Targets weren't just military installations. They were symbols, financial hubs, oil infrastructure, strategic bases. In Bahrain, explosions echoed near American facilities. In Kuwait, emergency sirens wailed through residential districts. In the UAE, the unthinkable happened. A strike hit close to one of Dubai's most iconic luxury hotels, sending tourists scrambling and smoke billowing over a skyline once marketed as untouchable. The message was clear. This war would not stay contained. And then Israel's sky lit up. Air raid sirens screamed across Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Families rushed into shelters. The Iron Dome, Israel's prized defensive shield, roared into action, intercepting wave after wave of incoming missiles. But one got through. One missile penetrated the defense system. That single impact changed the atmosphere entirely, because it proved something terrifying. This escalation is real, and it is deadly. As ballistic missiles continued to launch from northern Iran, Israeli interceptors responded from multiple positions, even coordinating from northern Iraq. The scale of the military choreography suggests months, perhaps years, of preparation. This was not a spontaneous reaction. This was premeditated confrontation. Meanwhile, President Trump doubled down. In a late-night address and social media posts, he declared that bombing operations would continue for as long as necessary. He framed the assassination as justice, not just for Americans, but for the Iranian people. And then came the gamble. He called directly on the Iranian population to rise up. He told them this was their moment, their destiny, their opportunity to reclaim their country. But here's the uncomfortable question. Can unarmed civilians overthrow one of the most entrenched security states in the world? Iran's Revolutionary Guard remains intact. Its intelligence apparatus remains operational. Its regional proxies, though weakened, are still dangerous. Killing a leader is one thing. Dismantling an ideology backed by decades of structure, loyalty networks, and force is something else entirely. Inside Tehran, reactions were mixed. There were videos of cheering in some neighborhoods, people celebrating the death of a man who ruled for decades with an iron grip. But elsewhere, fear dominated, uncertainty, confusion. The regime's security forces have not vanished. They are still there. And history tells us something important. Power vacuums in the Middle East rarely resolve peacefully. While missiles flew, the geopolitical dominoes began to wobble. The United Kingdom quickly clarified it had no role in the offensive strikes. However, British forces are now actively engaged in defensive operations across the region to protect personnel and bases. Prime Minister Keir Starmer spoke with President Trump, confirming coordination on defensive protections, but distancing the UK from the decision to strike. British aircraft are in the sky, British bases are on alert, and British citizens across the Gulf have been warned to seek shelter. Travel advisories have been upgraded. Evacuation planning is underway. The same is true for other Western nations quietly reinforcing embassies and repositioning assets. Because no one truly knows what comes next. Israel claims over 500 targets have been hit. Missile systems, command centers, high-ranking regime figures. The scale suggests this was designed not just to eliminate a leader, but to cripple Iran's strategic capabilities. But crippling is not collapsing, and retaliation is far from finished. Iran has already targeted American bases in Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, and the UAE. Oil markets are jittery. Shipping lanes in the Arabian Sea are under surveillance. Insurance premiums for Gulf transport have surged overnight. The Strait of Hormuz, the artery through which a significant portion of the world's oil flows, is once again in focus. If that choke point closes, the economic consequences will not stay regional. They will be global. And then there's Congress. This operation was launched without explicit congressional authorization for war. There was no extended national debate, no formal declaration. Supporters call it decisive leadership. Critics call it reckless escalation. Either way, it is undeniably the biggest geopolitical gamble taken by an American president in a generation. And looming over everything is the name of the operation itself. Epic Fury. A name that suggests not containment, not caution, but overwhelming force. For nearly 4 decades, Iran's supreme leader shaped the nation's trajectory, consolidating power, supporting proxy forces across the region, surviving sanctions, protests, and economic collapse. He outlasted rivals. He outlasted presidents. He outlasted uprisings. Until now. But regimes do not simply evaporate because one man falls. They adapt. They fracture. Or they radicalize further. Intelligence analysts are now watching for signs of succession, because reports suggest he had prepared for this very scenario. A contingency plan, a designated replacement, a structure ready to absorb the shock. If that's true, then what we are witnessing may not be regime collapse. It may be regime transformation, and transformation can be even more dangerous than stability. The streets of Tehran remain tense. The skies over Israel remain active. The Gulf remains volatile. And across Washington, Tel Aviv, London, and beyond, leaders are calculating risks in real time. Because once the first strike happens, the clock starts ticking. The question is no longer whether the Middle East is at war. It is how far this war will spread and who will be pulled into it next. And the world is watching.